Hey, it's Pastor Ryan. This is the second video for our Pentecost project, and these are the reflections that we're recording about a Bible verse or a hymn that's been meaningful for us. And the idea is, on Pentecost, everyone started talking about God, and so we're going to try doing that and using technology to help make that happen. And we'll cut all these into our digital service, and that's what will make our Pentecost service, and I think that'll be really meaningful. But so last time the idea was to work on just getting enough material, really, and what we said is the more specific the better. And so the idea was to kind of have your notes out there and first specifically choose your verse, and then after that start coming up with why is it meaningful for you, and we talked about the more specific you could be, the better. And ideally what's happened is that's created a whole bunch of notes that you have. We had talked about leaving your Bible open to that page and leaving your notes there and just kind of jotting stuff and letting it come over time. So the first thing is, as that happens, just leave those there. And if you did it each day, it wouldn't take very long just to kind of read what you have, read the Bible verse again, say a little prayer of just whatever comes to your mind. It doesn't have to be any great fancy prayer or anything. And keep on adding to your notes. As you pray, probably something else will come to mind, or you'll have a little bit of clarity. And so hopefully, if that's what you've done, you've got a lot of material. And now the idea is to try to kind of focus in on that one particular part that's going to be the part that you start on. And if you're having trouble with that, I'd just say kind of go back and watch that first video and try again, or give me a call, shoot me an email, and we could just start working on that one-on-one, and I know it'd be fun for me. So the next thing to do is, hopefully as you've focused in and you've kept all your notes, you have a lot of material, so that's not really the issue. It's trying to get started. And there's probably about, 4 things that came to my mind that would just be easy ways to get started. And there are different things that I do when I'm stuck as well. The first one is maybe just get started. Maybe as you've created stuff, you've got more than enough material, you've got more than enough to say, and you could just start writing. And usually the thing to do is not worry about having it perfect first. Just start writing, and then once you're done, then you can go back and edit. And that's a method that I do a lot. It's kind of the most straightforward and easiest one, and the idea is just to have fun, that at the beginning you don't got to worry about making it perfect at the start. You just start putting everything you can, and then over time, as you get further along, or once you're done, then you kind of go back and say, well, this is sort of filler, and you can cut all that out. And the other thing is, when you're doing it that way, you have a certain amount of freedom that you can just start writing whatever comes to your mind, and you don't got to worry about exactly if it belongs or even if it belongs there. And then once you have it all on your piece of paper, you can look at it, rearrange it, and cut pieces out. So that's probably the first, the easiest, the most intuitive. The next one would be doing what you did in school, writing projects in elementary school, where it was the web, and in the center web, you just have that main idea. And, I would say with your verse or your hymn, I wouldn't put that in the center. I would put kind of what you've zeroed in on as the reason why it's meaningful for you. So put that as your first circle. Then the very first line is your verse. And then from that circle and those 2 circles, just kind of start drawing out all your branches for all the other different ideas you have. And being able to visualize it is going to help you begin to focus your thoughts and see exactly what's meaningful for you, exactly what you feel is the most important, and kind of cut out the details and stuff like that. They're of course fine to include, but you'll have a better picture in your mind as far as saying, okay, this is kind of the meat of it, and this is an interesting detail. So those are 2. The next thing these next 2 are more, so the web is if you're just having trouble getting started, that kind of visualizing it will help. The second one is just writing. These next 2 are going to be as you start writing. And the first one that we'll go with is commonly taught for writing sermons, and it comes from speech writing, but it's at the top of your page, write focus, and then under that, write function. And the idea is that to be able to write in one sentence what the focus of your reflection is. So if we were to go back to the one where I talked about last time with Psalm 23 and realizing that as much as it's about resting and comforting, it's also about God being with us on our travels, the focus would be God is just as present with us in our trials as God is in our resting. And then the function is, so the function is what's your goal, what you hope that your reflection will be, what you hope your reflection would accomplish. So in this case, what would I, for mine, hope that it accomplish? That'd be my function would be, you want it to be more than, that I would talk about Psalm 23, something like the function that I could share why this verse has been comforting to me through all of life's different passages, so that it would be comforting to other people during transitional times in their life, which we're all in right now. So the first, the focus that I gave you was a little more focused, and then the function sentence, I'd probably go back and try to get that a little tighter, but it doesn't need to be perfect. So I guess I wouldn't worry too much about it. But once you have your focus and your function, that'll be helpful, because now you'll kind of know what you want each of your ideas to do. And as you go back and edit and see what belongs and what doesn't, or even as you look at that web that you've made, you can say, how does this relate to the focus and the function? And the more directly they relate, that's the really good stuff. The more you kind of have to explain the connection is actually going to help you get at what you want to say. And then the last kind of thing to focus it is from journalism, and that's the nut graph is what we were taught to call it, but that's just for the nut, like the kernel, and graph is short for paragraph. And when we would write articles, our teacher said, if you can't write what the article is about on the back of a business card, you don't actually know what the article is about. And in some ways, I think this might be a little intimidating, kind of scaring you off, and that's really not the hope. The idea is that the more clarity you have about what you want to say, the easier it's going to come. So maybe you've got your graph, or you've got your focus and your function, or even you've kind of got a long thing and you're trying to figure out, okay, what exactly do I want to say? Just write down in a paragraph, a paragraph is about kind of a good amount, and just write it down and see what you have there, and let that be kind of the doorway through what everything else will go through. So with the Psalm 23 example, the nut graph would be something like, the comforting psalm, Psalm 23, is just as much about those times that are uncomfortable as it is about the times that are comfortable. And having that promise helps make uncomfortable times more comfortable. So there you go. This is just kind of off the top of my head. I want you to kind of be able to see someone work through it, because that's the way that helps. And then as I think about that little nut graph paragraph that I came up with, I use the word comfort a lot. And so that might be kind of something that helps me focus in on these things. So these are really just a lot of techniques, and but I'm hoping that it'll kind of get you started. And as you just pick a technique and start working at it, hopefully it'll help you get to that point where all these ideas in your head and you have something on paper. And again, I've got some thoughts about these. I'm perfectly happy to kind of sit down and talk with one of you over the phone as you work through things, or even as maybe you've kind of got some jottings and you want to email them by me and have me look at it and see what stands out to me, and I'd be happy to do that as well. So those are the things. The last thing is, even as you work on it now, that one of the pieces of advice at the beginning, that when you start writing, it doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning, that really the idea is just to start. And sometimes just starting will kind of get you there. And as you work through it, usually what happens for me is as I work through it, kind of the beginning's just noodling around, and at a certain point I get to where I'm actually saying what I want to say. And then from there, kind of write out from it. And then what happens is the job is to go back, cut out the beginning noodling around, and finish it. And so I'll make a note to myself to talk about finishing it next week. The simplest one is just finish it. Don't worry about having a big grand conclusion. That's what I would say. So that's probably enough for that. So these are the ideas. But the last thing that I want to say, probably the important thing, is to continue to pray on this. So maybe you're going to start writing it, and it's all going to come, and those are really great moments, and you'll sort of be done. And the idea at this point is then to hit save and let it be there. The next day, go back, look at your notes, the Bible verse, pray on it, and read it again and see how you're feeling. But and then after you read it again, then pray. And so the kind of the couple goals is just work on us reflecting about our faith, and also praying, to continue to pray. And again, there's not really an instructions for prayer. We all intuitively get it, and it's just, you just keep doing it, and it'll become easier and more comfortable, and you'll know what you want to say. So anyway, the last thing that I want to leave you with, that I've been kind of hemming and hawing at over here, is as you work on it, if you don't get done, that's fine. The first, sit down and come back to it and pray, and then work on it a little more. Once you kind of call it a day, pray on it again, and just continue to do that. Just read it, whatever comes to mind, pray. As you do it, it might just be a prayer of thanksgiving, not that you finished it, but that thanksgiving for this Bible verse that's meant so much to you. And then reflecting on it, you realize that it means more to you, or reflecting on it, you learn that there's more to know about it. So this is already at 12 minutes, and I've said everything I want to say, could say a little more, but these are just kind of the nuts and bolts things that I wanted to help you all with. Again, if there's something you're wondering about, don't hesitate to reach out to me if any way that I can be of help to you. So looking forward to hear what you all have to say, and we'll see what we come up with next week. All right, bye.